Welcome, everybody. My name is Sarah. I handle the reservations, shore support, and cat staff duties for Jeffrey and Christine. Just wanted to welcome everybody for joining us for this first ever 12-day Alaska Cruise See It All trip launch live event. Just as a reminder for some housekeeping, we do have everybody muted and with your videos turned off. We have Christine spotlighted and she should be sharing her presentation with you. If you do have questions, please feel free to type them into the chat room and I'll be monitoring those questions. We'll try to answer those as soon as we get started. I wanted to, while Jeffrey and Christine are starting to talk, I wanted to actually start a little bit of a poll to see where everybody's participating from. So I'm going to get that going. And Jeffrey and Christine, why don't you say a few words before we get started?
Yeah, so welcome everybody, and thanks a lot for coming to join us on this. We a little of the background of this was that we used to, pre-COVID, we did a lot of traveling around the country, staying with people who had been guests on the boat and doing live talks in places, doing talks in libraries and in maritime museums and that kind of thing. And we really liked the fact that we got to go to different places. The traveling part of it was fun. But then during the COVID times, we decided that maybe it made sense to change things up a little bit. And after that, we've come up with this. And we thought it'd be a great way to get to talk to a lot of people across the country instead of just in one location.
Yeah. So do we want to say about like how we came up with the idea of this trip?
Yeah.
Talk about that. And
so we had we never really had done a trip in this area, and that's kind of why we're excited to do a new trip in a new spot. We started out during COVID. We suddenly needed to do a slightly different trip than we had been in the past. We had to do a trip where we went straight through from Bellingham to Ketchikan, and then we had a bunch of days left over. So we got the Forest Service to give us permits for Misty Fjords. And then that led to us wanting to do trips that included that area.
So I'm just going to interject here really quickly. Just I wanted to wrap up our first poll where we asked where everybody was participating in. This is really exciting to see where everybody's calling in from. I'm going to end the poll here and then share the results. And it looks like about 50% of the participants are calling from the Pacific Northwest. And then the rest is about spread out between the Northeast, the Midwest, the Southwest, and we have Canada. Oh, Canada.
Nice.
So yeah,
That's
so
fun. Thanks
so much for participating in our poll. We're trying to use these tools to make them more interactive. Again, everybody who's participating, we do have you muted and we have your videos off, but we will open that up later during the question and answer section and for some social hours. Okay. And then just so you know, we do have one question already about whether we're going to be offering this in 2024. So maybe if you want to answer that question as well. But with that, it's about 3 minutes past the top of the hour. Hopefully everybody's seeing Christine's presentation. If you want to give a thumbs up on that with your Zoom, that'd be great so that we can know that you're seeing what I'm seeing. And we're just, again, very happy to have you all here. Thank you so much. Hey, I got a couple thumbs up, so that's good. So Christine and Jeffrey, go on ahead.
okay, well,
So this trip kind of has three regions that we're going to be in. Obviously, it starts in Ketchikan. Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, do you want to state what the dates are while we're right here?
It's right there. It's May 19th to the 30th of this year. And to answer the question, it isn't on the schedule for 2024 because at this point we have a group that's possibly thinking about doing a trip that's already kind of semi-reserved a spot there to do a different kind of trip. But that might change. So it may, between now and that time, end up on the schedule for 2024. But we definitely have some spots for the 2023 trip. And then, so this trip has 3 regions. The first one is in Misty Fjords National Monument. The second one is at the Pack Creek Bear Observatory on Admiralty Island. And the third one, all of our trips in this area of Southeast always include the glaciers and the icebergs and the fjords and all that, sort of just south of Juneau.
So we kind of wanted to give everybody a big picture and then dial it in a little bit more. So as you can see, here's the northern half of North America. And you can see Washington, and like maybe this is my thing. You see Washington down here, and then all the way up here is British Columbia. And where we're focusing on is on the panhandle of Southeast Alaska. And you see this zoomed in a little bit more. This is pretty much all panhandle. And if you notice there in the middle of the map, it says Tongass National Forest. And pretty much most of what we'll be cruising through is through the Tongass. And again, to kind of go back to that Misty Fjords and Admiralty National Monument and Tracy Arm area. Those are all wilderness areas and monuments. And so what makes it kind of nice to go to, say, Misty Fjords being a wilderness area is that only groups of 12 and fewer can go to that. And so being a smaller boat, that gives us the opportunity to go ashore in places that others can't.
It's kind of an interesting arrangement. That area was national forest. And then the 2 national monuments, the Admiralty Island National Monument and Misty Fjords National Monument, got carved out of that. And actually they're still administered by the Forest Service. So it's all pretty much the Tongass National Forest.
And here's our route that we're planning on taking.
The route has a couple circles, and we double back a lot in this. But basically, we start down there in the bottom right, and we go around the island that Ketchikan is on. That's Revilla Gigato, and then and that's the Misty Fjords area. And then we make our way up to Petersburg, which is about in the middle of the map. And then from there, there's a couple places on the mainland and a couple places on the Admiralty Island side that we stop at. And then the end of the trip is up in Petersburg, or up in Juneau.
Yeah. So what we thought we'd do is share some highlights that we've put together, pictures that I've taken, and that to me just make this area really special. So sort of collection, a number of different trips that we've been on through there, but sort of my highlights of things that I really enjoy about each area that we'll be traveling through. So this is the first day, Ketchikan to Misty Fjords. And here you can see that route a little bit better. So you see Ketchikan down here on the left-hand side, and Misty Fjords National Monument over there. And we're heading towards a place called Rudyard Bay. And what I like about it is this is leaving out of Ketchikan, and this is in Tongass Narrow. So basically what we're starting out with is a slightly more populated area, and then we'll be heading into the wilderness. And then along the way, we get to see things that I really love. Often in this area, we see Dall's porpoises. And for anybody who's traveled with us and had the joy of Dall's porpoises on the bow, that's something we definitely look forward to. And
this is a surprisingly unmisty sunny day in Misty Fjords National Monument. But this is a lot of what that kind of terrain looks like. The farther inland you go from the ocean, the more that you get into this kind of tall granite slopes and the glacially carved fjords. So that Misty Fjords area is a set of fjords actually in the same kind of rock as the fjords that we go to farther north up by Juneau. A better, more misty
view, yes.
Yes. And one of the nice things about the timing on this trip is that it'll be springtime, which means there's lots of runoff, lots of snow melt. And so all the waterfalls will be big and going off like this. It's a cool time for getting pictures, but also just the sound of it and the feel of the place is definitely really kind of magical with all the waterfalls.
And of course, that time of year, bears start coming out. They've been out of hibernation. And one of the fun things about these early May trips is it's a time when the bears do come down and they're feeding on the sedges. There's a lot of protein in those sedges. So it's not uncommon to find them coming down to the beach.
There's less also for them to eat in the forest. And
Yeah.
so that pushes them out to the beach where it's easier for us to see them.
Yeah, I like those salads. And then in Rudyard Bay, there is this really, really nice hike. It's up to a place called Punch Bowl Cove, and it's got a beautiful lake that is up there with some more of those like really high-sided granite views. And here's a little set of steps that are there. Those are my feet. And then this is a little stream that runs down through there, and halfway up the hike, there's a big waterfall that comes down, and then eventually it leads you up into a view like this, and this is called Punch Bowl Cove.
This picture was taken later in the summer when there actually a lot of the snow had melted. When we'll be there, actually, I think a lot of those peaks in the background there will have snow at least halfway down, lots more snow that time of year.
So this is a little spot here, Misty Fjords and Beam Canal is the second day. And so we'll be heading out of Rudyard Bay, and what you can see down here, let me get this, you can see this down here, Rudyard Bay here. We'll head out into Beam Canal and then into a place called Walker Cove, which is another beautiful side canyon. And then we'll be moving over to an area called Yes Bay, which I like as a contrast to the Misty Fjords area because it has this beautiful wetland hike that we can go to. And
this is a classic of Christine. She threw this in there because we did some exploring there at Yes Bay one year, and she took a bunch of pictures of
and
a lot smaller things that you can find there.
Yeah, and so it's a really fun place to go walk in. There's lots of frogs there this time of year. Sometimes we see newts, but it's also a great time of year for wildflowers as well. And another thing that makes this particular hike interesting is that there used to be an old railroad that would go from the water up to a lake that's up there. And it's something that we've been looking for, and we found some of it. And maybe as we go explore, maybe this year we'll find a little bit more. There's also a skiff ride that is in Yes Bay that has a bunch of little islands on it. And some of those islands are inhabited by small creatures, like this little mink that came out to say hello to us. And
then we're going to head on from Yes Bay to Port Stewart, also in Beam Canal. So we're still going around Rio Jaquedo Island. And that spot is sort of down at the southern end of Beam Canal almost. And that also has a bunch of really nice spots for us to go for a hike in. And like this spot where we can go to the beach. And there's a place farther back in there where we did a hike one time and had an awesome encounter with a bear.
Not a bad awesome encounter.
An awesome encounter at a distance.
At a distance.
You want to show that one? And so then, so this is a good spot for that kind of photography if people want to do it, but also it's just a really beautiful space to go to.
So then we'll be moving along from Port Stewart, and we're going to be moving out through an area called Clarence Strait and up into a spot called Myers Chuck, which is a cute little village. And I'm sorry that I didn't actually have any pictures I could find of it. But in the meantime, I'll just show you some of the things that I really enjoy along the way. So first of all, here we are up here at Port Stewart. And we're going to go down around here and out into Clarence Strait, and Myers Chuck is located right here. It's another fantastic, what they call bomb-proof kind of anchorage, where it's very calm, and there's a bunch of very quirky houses along the water edge there, and it's a fun place to go and explore, and might even see some people we know.
It's a bunch of the houses are built like out on little stilts out over the water into or out on little docks.
Yeah. But on our way there, we'll keep our eye out for humpback whales. We see them fairly commonly throughout the year in this area. And also it's another area that we've seen killer whales fairly frequently. So we'll keep our eyes out for them as well.
We've also, the humpbacks that the couple slides back there, the humpbacks in that area are in that area. They tend to be there earlier in the season than the humpbacks farther north. I'm not sure quite why, but they get there earlier. And so we have actually during this time seen the humpbacks feeding in that particular spot.
So for Myers Chuck, we'll still continue into Clarence Strait a little bit further, and we'll head over to Zarumbo Island. And you can see that right here. I don't know if you see with my pointer. We've got down here, there's Myers Chuck, and then we'll cruise on up to the top up there where that second dot is. And that's where Roosevelt Harbor is, and that's on Zarumbo Island. And Zarumbo Island is not only a very pretty island, but it also is an island that has some active logging on it. And so there are logging roads that we can go walk on, and we'll often find some interesting things there. So this is a old pier that sometimes gets used, but I just like that cleat right there. And then you can find some interesting relics that are left.
Some
and
island
island
vehicles.
cars. Yeah.
The next day, we're going to go on from there and through Wrangell Narrows and on to Thomas Bay. Wrangell Narrows is a 22-mile long stretch that's very narrow, and it's actually the main part of the waterway that's the inside passage all the way from Olympia to Skagway. And but it's this very narrow spot. It's got 46 buoys and markers and that kind of thing along the way as you go through there. It's just a really interesting spot. You're very close to the shore. There's lots of current. We actually have to time our passage through there. And then at the north end of it is Petersburg. And depending on how our schedule goes, we should have a few hours to spend in Petersburg before we go on. And then on the other side, on the way out, this is a sea lion that's one of a group of them that love to hang out on this buoy that's right at the other end of Wrangell Narrows. If people have been on a trip leaving from Petersburg, it's a spot that we often stop to look at them. They are pretty vocal, and they are often in big piles on there, 3 or 4.
Yeah, they're fun to watch. Yeah. So this is moving into Thomas Bay, and this is a spot called Cascade Creek. It's a really nice place for kayaking. There's also a small hike there to a really pretty waterfall. And so, yeah, time permitting, that's another spot that we would spend a little bit of time. But after we move from, we'd anchor there for a couple hours, and then after we move into move from Cascade Creek, we would go over to a place called Scenery Cove. But before, we might see a deer on the way. And this is a little spot entering into Scenery Cove, which is so aptly named.
All the wildlife pictures that we've been showing in these spots are actually pictures that were taken in those places. These aren't, taken somewhere else, and we might see those there. This is when we were in this spot one time, this is what we saw.
Yeah.
Also at Scenery Cove, and this one is definitely time dependent. If everything's working out on schedule, we should be able to go to this spot where we can walk up tide flats to the front of a glacier. And it's very time dependent, so we'll see how that works out. Then the next day we're headed across Frederick Sound to Admiralty Island. This lighthouse here is called Five Finger that will pass along the way. And you can see this here. going across up towards the northwest there. There's a spot on Admiralty Island that we'll spend the night before we go on to Pat Creek. And this area is also a good area for us to see humpback whales and also orca whales. We're right on the edge of where the sea otters have made it into, now that they've made a rebound after being hunted for years, and it's right on the edge of where we occasionally see otters. So this might be a spot we would see otters. And there's also a spot along there that we, depending on the time of the tide and whatnot, we often can see sea lions at a haul out there.
And a more wild, less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
These are actually like on a wilderness rock.
Yeah.
Or
And
sometimes chasing
yeah,
us.
yeah. Sometimes they're as curious about us as we are about them. So this is one of my favorite places in all of Southeast Alaska, Pat Creek. And what I really like about it is this juxtaposition with the bears and the people. And there's sort of a coexistence that goes along there that's sort of fostered by mutual respect. And so this is
This picture though really shows it. Like,
yeah.
people have been walking on this beach, and bears have been walking on the beach as well.
Yeah. And the bears that we see on Admiralty Island, what makes Admiralty Island extra special too, is that it only has brown bears. And so brown bear is a grizzly bear. And so we'll be seeing bears there. And first, we'll have spent the night in Gambier Bay on Admiralty Island. And you can see that down at the lower right-hand corner. And then we'll work our way up Seymour Canal to Pat Creek. So you can see our anchorage there. And one of the first things that we do when we anchor is we look and see who's ashore. And so you can see here's a sow with a cub, and that's taken from the beach there. What we do when we arrive at Pat Creek is what we're watching for is for the way that the tide is moving in and out, because what the bears are doing there is they come in and out depending upon, they're looking for clams, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so at low tide, they go out on the mud flat, and at high tide, they come in. And it's one of the highlights is as they're coming in from their clamming is to be able to like see them in spots that's a little bit close. So here's one that she'd been out clamming all day and came in, and after a hard day of clamming, there she is taking a little break. And sometimes mothers will bring their cubs up to the area that is the observatory area, and so we get a nice good look at them.
This area has, like, there are a bunch of different kinds of bear observatory areas, and I really like this one because about half of it is a really wild kind of bear observatory spot. So this area where we're going to be is out on the beach, which is all in that wild area. There's one small spot where humans are allowed to be on the beach, and then there's another place over in a meadow that the previous bear was lying in, where there are a couple old rotting logs that you can sit on. But basically there isn't any platform or anything at that spot that we'd be using during the spring like this. Later in the summer, when the salmon are running up the creek, there's a platform quite a ways up the creek where you can climb up a platform and watch the bears.
And the salmon.
Yeah, and the salmon. But with this, I really like it that the bears are right there at the same level. And like this one, this one's actually standing. The logs are kind of arranged in a big rectangle. And this cub was standing on the
one of the logs
yeah, on the other side.
But it's, of course, not just the bears. There are other things that are really fun. I always get a kick out of the ravens at Pat Creek. They're a lot of fun to watch. And it's a great place also for other birds, especially during May when there's still a little bit of migration going on. So we do see a number of different types of birds as well as bears. So the next day, we'll wave goodbye to Pat Creek and we'll at Pat Creek and also Admiralty Island, and we'll head across a body of water called Stevens Passage to Holcomb Bay.
If this picture isn't a little bit obvious, it's a humpback whale on its side, rolling on its side, and you're seeing its big pectoral flipper come up out of the water.
Giving us a nice wave.
Yeah.
So you can see up there, Pat Creek in the left, and then as you go down around the Glass Peninsula down there and across Stevens Passage, and that little stretch there is also another amazing place for watching humpback whales, as well as killer whales.
And Dall's porpoises.
And Dall's porpoises, yeah, we've often had Dall's porpoises on the bow there too.
In the springtime, this area going up towards Pat Creek and back, there have been lots of Dall's porpoises there. Later in the summer, not as many, but still a lot.
Yeah.
But it's a good spot
Yeah.
for
I
that.
sometimes think in the spring they get really excited when the boats start showing up. So this is what usually greets us, or this is what greets us in Holcomb Bay at Sum Dum Glacier. And it's really, really beautiful. Just, I think it's 6,600 feet high and has a glacier down the center of it. Not tidewater, but still very beautiful. And it has one of my favorite beaches. This area right here is called Wood Spit. And not only is it great for going ashore, but we often see icebergs from Endicott Arm and Dawes Glacier, and they're kind of fun to go explore around.
This hike that we can do there is tide dependent, but it's one of those spots that you can go into the forest and you can really see what the forest looks like in underneath the canopy. There's this magical kind of feeling where you're closed in on the sides and on the top, but underneath there you can see, and it's just a really nice spot, and it's all spongy moss and everything is squishy and
Smells nice.
Smells wonderful.
Yeah. But also, when we're ashore, sometimes this is I think last year or the year before, Jeffrey dropped us off on the beach, and right behind him a humpback whale surfaced. So we've had humpback whales often near the boat while we were at anchor. And then this is the beach there. So this is the back side of the spit going on the inside of the arm, and we're able to walk out to some icebergs that had come up along the shore there. Another great place it is for bird watching. Often eagles are there. Some more birds, some black turnstones, I think those were. Especially at low tide, there's a lot of tide pooling. That's a lot of fun to enjoy. And then, like Jeffrey was saying, the forest. This is a spot that I do like to take people and spend extra time in the forest. If we have the time, love to sit down and have some quiet time and just sort of listen to the sounds of the forest. It's a pretty magical spot.
Then we head up the fjord, about halfway up to the end where the glacier is. We come to this spot called Fords Terror. This spot has two really interesting things to do. One is this skiff ride where we can go into the back of Fords Terror. It's this big, long T-shaped fjord, and all of it is these big granite cliffs on the sides. It's just the walls overhang almost on the sides. It's not very wide through there, and it's just one of the few places that look like that in North America, and it's a very cool spot. There are tons of waterfalls in there, and like I said earlier, in springtime everything is running really hard, so there'll be lots of big waterfalls going. And we have seen some bears back in there. We've done pretty well seeing bears on a really nice sunny day. This is a hike that we can take there. That's sort of the other thing to do at Fords Terror, is go for this hike, and it takes you up to this spot where you can sit on a rocky promontory and look down on the little bay that the David B is anchored in. We've also done some kayaking there. It's nice with the kayaks to be able to go right along the shore and be right near the edge it isn't really super shallow there like it is in some spots, because a lot of it drops right off into deep water, but it's still very cool to get to do that and kayak around the ice. And the next day, we're on to the end of the fjord, to Dawes Glacier. This day we run all the way to the end, spend about an hour, sometimes 2 hours, drifting around maybe a quarter mile or so away from the face of the glacier, and taking pictures of all kinds of stuff there, and just watching it, waiting for it to calve. This is kind of what the scenery looks like in that spot. Also lots of wildlife there, lots of seals on the ice. They go all the way to the end of the fjord to haul out to have their young. And we'll be just a little bit before that. They won't actually be pupping right then, but there'll be a bunch of them there because they'll be getting ready for it. And then the last day, so on the last night, I always like to spend the last night out in the wilderness in Holcomb Bay somewhere, so that we don't have to go. The places closer to Juneau tend to have a little bit more civilization showing, and you know, buildings on the shore and that kind of stuff. And so I like to stay out there for the last night in Holcomb Bay, and then the next morning is on to Juneau. And then if you've been on a trip with us, you know that means croissants the last day of the trip, and pain au chocolat. Here's the route from No Name Cove in Holcomb Bay up to Juneau. And we always leave quite early to get in about 2 in the afternoon or so. And even though it's the last day of the trip, the other thing I like about spending our last night still out there in the wilderness is that the last day of the trip isn't just a throwaway day. It actually often can have some good wildlife watching, and the scenery is really pretty all the way up through there as well. So that ends up being kind of a full day as well, even though it is the last day of the trip.
Okay, so that's our itinerary. And I think at this point, if you have any questions, are we going to open it up, Sarah?
Well, first I thought, after you guys did such a great job staying on track with your 12-day itinerary, I was a little nervous that we were going to run out of time, but you guys did great. We're at half past. I wanted to do another poll since we've kind of seen some of the highlights. I wanted to see what people might be interested in terms of some of the interests. So I'm going to open up another poll here real quick and just ask, what are you excited to see on this trip? And I'm going to launch that. And if you guys want to participate and then think about some of your questions, again, for those of you joined a little bit later, we have everybody muted and we have everybody with their video turned off at this point, but we do have our chat room, and I'm happy to monitor and moderate the questions that are coming into the chat. So feel free to type those in, and then we can get everybody going with that and answer some of your questions. Obviously, I can answer questions about what's it like to make a reservation, and of course, questions from the trip and the itinerary that Jeffrey and Christine have just walked through. I think I made it so that it can be more than that, but so far we're getting some, we've got a lot of people who've answered. About half of them have answered, and we'll leave it open for another minute or so. Good news, Christine, your pastry basket every morning, that is right there in the thick of it. Lots of people good for that.
Everybody always claims that that's sort of a bittersweet thing, because you know that the croissants, the homemade, handmade croissants and pain au chocolat are going to show up on the last day, on the last morning, but that also means it's the last morning.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sad. But wonderful at the same time, I guess. The other thing I was going to say that we didn't really talk about that much was that we haven't scheduled any trips in this area, because in the first area, in the Misty Fjords area, and so this will be the first time we've actually had one on the schedule going to that spot. But we have had a couple chances to explore it. 2 times when a trip didn't work out for other reasons and we ended up going there, or the scheduling didn't work out quite right because of COVID. And then another year we actually were able to go there it was in 2020, and we were able to go there, just the two of us and two friends that had come along. And it was nice because we actually got to go and explore a bunch of the spots and try to figure out kind of what the best ones were and where we wanted to go and what we'd like to do there. And that was really nice. We actually spent about 6 or 7 days just in that area.
The whole time going, oh, we really need to do this.
We need to come here. This would be really
Yeah.
cool. How can we come here?
Yeah.
Well, here's some of the poll. I'm going to end the poll here. Thank you for everybody who participated in it. Looks like we've got our results here. I don't know, I think it's a multi-tie thing. Everybody wants to see everything. But you know, we had glaciers, obviously, bears, whales, tide pools, Misty Fjords, Christine and Jeffrey. Sorry,
Yay.
Christine, I think you're right to tie in with your pastry basket. And then of course, hanging out with the pilot house with Jeffrey, and then of course, the David B itself. All right, that's good. Thank you guys for participating in that. Okay, I want to get to some of the questions that we've got coming in. We're going to keep the screen up with the contact information. And just as a reminder, we are recording this presentation. And once we've had a chance to kind of massage the edits a little bit, we'll post that and I'll make that available. And I'll also be sending out follow-up emails with everybody who participated just to see if there were any questions. But for today, let's see what some of the questions are that we have here. I'm just going to start from the top here. Looks like we have a question from Peter, where we fly into and out of. So this is a one-way trip. So you would fly into Ketchikan and then out of Juneau. And so in general, when I say questions about flights, I say get to Seattle, and from there you can take Alaska Air to all of our ports of call. Okay, so there's
Although
that.
now Delta does have some flights out of Juneau. I'm not sure if they have anything out of
Chicago, maybe.
Yeah, from the Midwest, there might be a Juneau connection
Possibly. Okay.
there. And then also both Ketchikan and Juneau, the airport is convenient, and it's easy to get to a hotel or something from there. A lot of the places will actually come pick you up.
Yeah.
So.
And I have a list of places where you can stay in Ketchikan and Juneau, which I'm happy to share with people. I have a question from Renee. She would like to see some more pictures about the cabins down below. You know, and that's a common question that I get. You know, what are the cabins like? You know, they're small. I don't want to sugarcoat that. We do have portholes in there. A lot of people find that that's helps. And then, of course, most of the time you're going to be up in the saloon area, not in your cabin. But I can send you some more photos of that. And you can see those on our website. Renee, I can send some more of those photos to you. There was a question about, is the presentation being taped? So yes, that is, it's pre-recorded. So we'll share that on our website later. All right, so then I have another.
To go back to that before on the cabins.
Yes, go ahead.
The cabins, 3 of the cabins have, I've always been saying a queen size bed, but I think it's actually like 2 inches narrower than a queen in one of them, but they're like almost a queen size width. And then they're definitely a queen size length. And then in addition to that, in the cabin, there's enough room to stand up and turn around and put your clothes on. And then each one also has an in-suite bathroom or head. And those, and then everybody has a sink as well.
We have one cabin that's got 2 extra long twins that are in an over-under bunk.
Yeah.
Also with a private toilet and sink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll next trip or next one of these, I'll add some pictures of the cabins as well.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question we have is, do you have any connections or relationships with Indigenous communities in and around the area? I'd be interested in the culture, arts, and history of Native culture in the area.
We don't have any personal connections, but I would definitely say that in Juneau, if you go up the Mount Roberts tram, there's a lot of really interesting native cultural stuff going on there. And then there's a new museum in Juneau that will give you an awful lot of information, as well as in Ketchikan, you can go out to, there's a totem pole park in Ketchikan. So there's
Saxman Village.
Saxman Village. And so there's all sorts of ways that you can learn a lot about Native culture. I do have a ton of books in our library about Native art, Native history, and all of that. So yes, so there's definitely ways to connect with the Native culture, and I think those are some of the best ways. And I can send you some links to help you out with that.
A lot of what we do in this area is more about us experiencing the wilderness. And so we kind of try to get out of town pretty quickly. And very few of our trips have gone near places where there are towns like Petersburg. They tend to stay, our trips tend to not be organized near there. So that's kind of why we haven't done that kind of thing in the past.
Okay. Another question is, how many other boats are likely to be in the Misty Fjord area at that same time?
When we've
Not
been
many.
through that early, there have been very few boats. One of the other things that there won't be very many of are the flight seeing seaplanes that operate there. There definitely will be some because the cruise ships will have started operating, but it's early enough in the season that there won't be huge numbers of them. And so it'll be nice at night too, because it's always quiet once they stop. But yeah, probably in some of those spots, in the times we've explored in there, we were often the only boat, or one of 2 or 3 boats at most in a lot of those spots. And we've hiked that trail a couple times and not seen anybody on a couple of the times we've hiked it.
Yeah, we did see one couple one time.
Yeah, we did run into
one time, and
run into a couple that ended up we knew them.
They
But
knew my mother.
they knew her.
What are the odds?
Yeah, just randomly. And
Right.
then it turned out that one of the women on it has been a passenger of ours ever since. And she's been on a number of trips, and it's been always fun to have her on board. So that was kind of a fun experience.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank you for mentioning the cruise ships, because that was a related question that was right after that, is, do the cruise ships impact some of the David B. Cruise experience? So I don't know if you want to say anything more about that.
Like trying to get out of town to get away from people. We also, the route that we take, most of it is not in places where the cruise ships can go. So the bigger boats don't do any travel in Misty Fjords. As far as I know, we've never seen them go up around that way. And then so there's one little section in Clarence Straits where they might be, and a little section just south of Juneau, and
then a little bit in Endicott Arm.
Oh yeah, occasionally in by the glacier, there will be cruise ships. But most of the places that we go, we're trying to get away from other people and be out where we're feeling like we're having a wilderness experience, and so we don't end up seeing them a huge amount.
I have a couple of related questions about what is the daily schedule like? I had 2 people kind of asking the same question, like, how are the days going to be divided? Are there some long sea days, hiking, paddling, etc.? And then what was the daily schedule kind of like? So you want to expand on that?
Yeah, so our daily schedule for this kind of trip is that sometime between 6 and 7, I start up the generator. Overnight it's quiet without anything running, and it's not actually a particularly loud generator when it is running. And we typically get going, if we're going to leave in the morning, we get going sometime right around breakfast, and typically get somewhere late afternoon to go ashore, to go hiking, to go kayaking. At the Pack Creek Bear Observatory, we'll probably leave pretty early that morning to try to get up there. The tide that we want to start watching bears from starts coming in at noon or about then, and so then we'll be going out onto the mud flats to try to watch them as they come in. But that'll be a different kind of timing thing. And then there are a couple days with this where we need to make some miles. And so we'll need to get going pretty early in the morning, but there will be time on each of those to go ashore somewhere, either in the morning or the evening to
Yeah, it's
to do
light pretty
something.
late, so we
Yeah, it's
often,
amazingly light.
yeah, so we often we'll do stuff later in the evening. Sometimes dinner will get pushed back a little bit late because we might want to be doing something fun instead of eating. But yeah, we always joke that the day starts with coffee, and that's usually sometime around 5:30 these days. So whenever you're up, I've got coffee ready for you.
Kind of a related question about the daily thing. This from Carol. She's asking, will we be able to go ashore at Cat Creek? And I think the answer is
Absolutely.
yes, with
Yes.
guides.
Yes.
So that is a very emphatic yes. So that's a very important highlight. Let's see, moving on.
We
Oh.
got the permits to do that a couple years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so we are able to do all of our own guiding there, which is kind of nice.
Mhm.
We go ashore as a group, and it's
There's a lot of protocol.
there's a lot of there's a lot of ways that they do things so that the bears are not surprised by what the humans are doing,
Mhm.
and everybody's comfortable.
Okay, well, speaking of comfort, here's a question from somebody who obviously knows that we've made some improvements on the David B, because they're asking, how are the bidets working out?
Oh, they're working out lovely.
They're very nice.
Yeah.
I don't really, post a poll like you do about it. But we are using considerably less toilet paper.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling they're being used.
Mhm.
And we know of at least one person who used it and decided when he got home that he needed to have one.
Good, good. Okay, we got a couple other logistical type questions. This one's for Christine from Erica. Can you accommodate dietary restrictions such as a vegan diet?
Yes, I can. I've had vegans. It's a little bit more challenging, but if you are vegan and you've got some recipes you can help guide me with, I am more than happy if there's something you really like. I often will build my menus from the bottom up. So yeah, a vegan recipe or a vegan diet isn't that hard. I think we had one vegan on last season. Is that it?
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can also do gluten-free. I do that fairly regularly. Let's see, people who are diabetic. So yeah, so I have lots of different diets that I've been able to work with. So yes, I can do it.
Yeah, and we always ask, I always ask about a month beforehand, what are some of his dietary restrictions, any allergies, that sort of thing. So we always try to get that to Christine well in advance. Then this one's for Jeffrey. How big is the David B?
So the David B is 65 feet long, which is the most common way of measuring it. And it's I don't know, it weighs about 145,000 pounds. It's got the original engine from 1929. And like we were saying, it has 4 staterooms now for guests and 2 staterooms for crew. And then everybody has their own head. There's also another bigger head that has a big bathtub, big cast iron bathtub and a shower in it. And then there's also a pretty good sized engine room space.
Wonderful.
And
Okay.
nice thing about the boat is that it only draws about 7 feet, so we can get into some really shallow spots to anchor, and there are places that other boats can't generally get into.
Okay, well, speaking of going ashore and getting into space, there's a question about how do we go ashore? And you probably saw in some of the pictures the skiff, but Jeffrey, you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so a few years back in 2017, we built a new skiff to use for taking people ashore. And the skiff is this aluminum boat with a flat bottom. And we designed it so that it would be easy to get up onto the beach and be able to get out once you were there. We often take groups ashore and then I'll go back to the boat. And so we don't always leave it at the beach, but we occasionally have done that as well. It can accommodate the entire group. We can get everybody in it at once to get somewhere. And one of the things that I like doing is taking people on skiff trips through, narrow little passages that are too small for the David B, or taking people really close along the shore to do exploring. It's a wonderful thing to be in to watch bears. And it's also really good for photography because there's lots of space in it to put your stuff, on the, put your backpack on the floor with all your camera gear, but it works, that way you can have all your stuff with you more than you might want to carry if you were actually going on a hike. And
it's nice, yeah, it is nice to go ashore because it's got that flat bottom. So when Jeffrey takes us up onto the beach to let us out, the boat, like a lot of boats, might have a V shape to them. This one's flat, and so you can just step up a couple steps and step down onto the beach. And I don't know if you saw on the Fords Terror picture with us all over the edge of that cliff looking down on the boat. Everybody was wearing some gray rubber boots. Those are our David B complimentary boots that you can wear on the boat. They're great for walking in ankle deep water. They're good for getting out in the skiff. They're good for walking in, hiking in. So they'll be there, and Sarah will get your shoe size for you, and we'll have them waiting for you when you get aboard.
And speaking of clothing, Bob has a question about, for people who've never been to Alaska, what suggestions for clothing do you have? And are mosquitoes a big issue? And before Jeffrey and Christine weigh in on clothing, I want to share my 2 top pieces of clothing I recommend every passenger bring along. One is rain pants. Because sometimes when we're outside, going ashore or even in front of the glaciers, you need it for rain and wind, and you can use them in your kayaks. But my favorite piece of equipment and clothing that I recommend for people to bring to the David B is indoor-outdoor slippers, because it's really cozy inside the saloon area, and it's like being at home. There's no special shoes. So that's my suggestion there. So go ahead, Jeffrey and Christine, you want to answer the clothing and mosquito questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to start with mosquitoes or clothing?
I'll do clothing.
Okay.
So that area can have a really wide range of temperatures. So and it can be cold and rainy, and it can be hot and sunny at that time of year. Some years, or actually most years, that time of year has nicer, sunnier weather than later in the summer. And so you kind of have to plan for everything. When we go up to look at the glaciers and we're drifting around in front of the glacier watching, it's cold and windy, and the wind is coming right off the ice, and it's mittens and hats and several layers underneath a raincoat maybe, and rain pants, like Sarah was saying, and I often wear long underwear on that day as well, just because it feels much better to be outside. When you're inside, it's all cozy and nice, and in the galley you can be in short sleeve shirts, and then so we also have a clothing to pack kind of list that we include, that Sarah sends to you to make sure that you've got a good idea of what to bring. But yeah, that's kind of the list, that it goes all the way from rain gear and cold weather gear to, at this time of year, I don't think you'd probably wear your shorts very much, but certainly short sleeve shirts and your slippers.
But it's definitely layering. And I often encourage people, don't worry about, having, you can wear the same thing every day. We don't really care. It's not dressed to the nines or tuxedos and black tie at dinner for sure. So Christine, you want to answer the mosquito question before we get on to our next question?
Yeah, unlike the interior of the state, we don't run into a huge number of mosquitoes. We might get some no-see-ums ashore. There's usually enough breeze while we're out on the water that we don't have a whole lot of bug issues on the boat. There is a time of year, and I can't remember what it is, I think it's like late June, that sometimes there's black flies in a couple areas, but in general in May it's still cool enough that we don't really have a whole lot of bug issues. I always, in my guide pack, I always take 2 types of bug spray. I take the bug spray that you feel good about putting on, and then I take the bug spray that will
It has DEET.
that has DEET in it, that after you're tired of the stuff that kind of works, then I'll loan that out too. So I always have bug spray with me. We don't really have them that bad on the boat generally. So especially that time of year, I can't think of any time where we were really bothered by no-see-ums or mosquitoes or anything like that. So a good time of year.
In 17 years of doing this, we've never needed mosquito net hoods. You know, like we've never needed the big, huge things that you see people wearing sometimes when they're in the interior where the mosquitoes are considerably worse.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning your experience. There was one of the questions about how long have you guys been doing trips on the David B, and obviously there's we're going into our 18th season, and then you guys have your experiences. So there's anything more you want to say about that?
I started working on boats for a living, doing tour boat stuff on the coast of Maine in 1990. And so I've been doing it, and I've been doing it continuously since then on various sizes and kinds of boats. And then Christine started in
2001 was my first boat job, I think. 2000 or 2001.
2001, somewhere in there. Yep.
So it's been a long time.
Yeah. Just a couple other wrap-up questions in the last 5 minutes here. We have, speaking of what Christine brings in her pack when you go ashore, there's a question, do you take bear spray on the hikes?
Yes.
And the answer is?
Take bear spray. Yes, I do have bear spray. Yes.
All the guide operations that we deal with anyway, almost all of them have now gone to carrying bear spray as their first tool to use for bears. Bear spray diffuses the situation. The bears run away. If you're smart, you leave as well, because it's pretty hard on your senses if you don't. And most of the people that are doing what we're doing, that's generally their first thing to bring with them. So when we go on a hike, almost always we'll have two crew members with the group. Depends on, some of the places are much less of a risk with bears, but we'll always have, each of us will have a bear spray with us.
Okay.
I keep a
Good.
first aid kit. The boat has, well, we're on safety topics.
Sure.
The boat has a AED. We keep EpiPens, and what else do we have?
Big, huge first aid kit
Big,
on
huge
the boat.
first aid kit on the boat, and then I take a moderate sized one ashore with me.
Plus wilderness first aid training, firefighting training, other certifications. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Couple other questions. How do you receive weather forecasts about, how do you expect if there's going to be days and days of downpour and heavy rain for hours, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Well, so I always tell people it is a rainforest. It's a temperate rainforest. And the reason that all those pictures that you saw of places ashore look so green and have all those big ferns growing is because there is a lot of precipitation. And you can kind of count on it. That's what makes Misty Fjords misty. We typically use these days we use our InReach, which is a satellite-based system to get weather forecasts. In this region, there's kind of only one area that we'll go through where I'll be worried about the wind and sea conditions. But other than that, most of this is inside passage, protected, calm water kind of stuff.
Okay.
So.
And I think just kind of our final question before I start our poll and open things up for the social hour. There's a question from Erica. Having never been on a cruise before, do you think being on a boat for 12 days will make you feel claustrophobic, or do you get off the boat enough to keep it fresh and exciting?
Oh, the latter for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I try. I do this not because of going on boats, but because of going ashore. I mean, to me, that's the goal, is to be able to use the boat to get places so that we can go ashore and see what it's like. So on this trip, I would say every single day we'll have some time to go ashore. Some of it is a little bit more strenuous walking. Some of it's walking on the beach. or kayaking or something like that. But there'll be chances every day to do something
And
like
one of the
that.
things that I really enjoy about the boat's layout is, if you're looking at the picture on the screen, you can see that there's a lot of space in the main deck area, that white part of the house. So when you're inside, the very back of the boat is the galley. There's the midsection, which we call the saloon, which is kind of like a living room. And then there's the wheelhouse, and all that area right there is accessible for people to move around about. The cabins are all down below in that black area on the inside. You can't see the 7 feet that extends down lower. So there's a lot more space down in there where the cabins are. And then on that upper deck, that whole upper deck is available to you as well. And because we're in a lot of areas where there's a lot of wildlife, especially whales and porpoises, sea lions and all that, we spend an awful lot of time going up on that upper deck or out on the bow watching whales. So I always think it's really exciting. It's like the moment you kind of sit down and maybe you want to journal or pick up a book or something always seems to pop up, like a whale or a bear on the beach, or I don't know, there's always something exciting.
I wanted to just, I just put in the chat room kind of a link to our schedule, and then I wanted to open up that last poll that I had here of when would you like to travel with us? So I'm going to put that out there, not to put anybody on the spot, promise we won't hold you to it, but we'd love to hear what you think about that. I will again be doing some follow-up after our presentation. I wanted to just touch base on if somebody did want to make a reservation for this trip or any of our other trips, by all means, just feel free to contact me. You have my contact information there. In general, we sell our trips out first come, first serve, and to make a reservation, we only require a 25% non-refundable deposit, and then the balance is not due until 90 days before the trip sale. So really, even if you were going to travel with us next year, the balance wouldn't be due until February. And then I'm your main point of contact if you have any questions before that. All right, looks like there's one final question about showers and washing. You want to talk about that before we close up? And
Yep. So we have lots of water and lots of electricity available on the boat. We have a reverse osmosis water maker that takes seawater and turns it into drinking water. On the boat, we typically go through about 150 gallons a day, more with a bigger group, but it's about the same because most of it actually goes down the galley sink and through the dishwasher. But showers are unlimited. We don't have any time frame or anything where you never need to sign up to do it. You can do it as often as you want.
You could even have a bath.
You can have a bath if you want, and people have.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun when the boat's got a little teeny bit of motion on it to, be in the bathtub with the water a little bit sloshing around in there. And then the same is true for the electricity. We have lots of power to charge devices, all of our electricity. We have an inverter that runs all the outlets at night, and the generator is on during the daytime to charge our batteries back up, and so we have plenty of power for all that kind of stuff.
okay, just to share the results from the polling, looks like we have a couple people thinking about coming in 2023 and 2024, and then there's obviously folks that aren't quite sure. We don't have our schedule for 2025. That might be and beyond, but certainly people do think about that far in advance. I just wanted a couple other items just to finish up before we officially end our meeting. We are going to be having an open boat in the spring in Bellingham. That's going to be in April. And we'll be posting that. And I think that's going to be on the April 15th, that Saturday. We have been doing private tours, where it's 30 minutes. Go in, you have a direct tour with myself, Christine, Jeffrey, about the whole see the boat. So that's a great opportunity. And then there was a question, I think it's a good question, about single people traveling. We do not charge extra for solo passengers, and everyone does have a private cabin. We don't make anybody share a cabin with anyone unless they want to. And that's usually in that twin bunk bed cabin that we've talked about. But again, that's totally voluntary. And I think that was it. Again, we are recording this, and we will make that available, and I will be following up. At this point, I just want to again thank everybody for joining us for our first live ever event on our 12-day trip. The trip dates are May 19th through the 30th in 2023, and hopefully beyond, depending on our schedule, but stay tuned for that. Jeffrey and Christine, anything more you want to say before I open it up to kind of social hour for those who want to stay on after we're done with our meeting?
That's good.
I think that's good. No, and
Yeah.
I look forward to opening this up and seeing some faces and chatting and seeing what people are up to.
Why don't you stop sharing your screen?
Okay, I will do that. Can I, do I
Yeah,
have permission? I'm
Yep, I think so.
gonna stop share.
All right. So there we go. And I'm going to, let's see here. See if we have, everybody should be able to, I think, start their videos. Yep, go ahead. I'll
Okay.
leave those open.
Do
I
you want to?
think I need to spotlight Christine here so that we can do the matrix view for everybody.
There's a close on the left.
Yep.
I see Debbie Westward.
Okay.
I see
Window.
Carol. See lots of
Yep.
folks. I want to go to gallery.
So there you go. Hi,
Ah.
everybody.
Hello.
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 Here we are.
Val. Oh, so good to see so many people. We're gonna just.
Got that into gallery view there. Yep.
Yeah. We are recording this at our house and not at the boat because we have the boat all in winter mode, which means all the comfy cozy stuff is in storage. And for those of you who've traveled with Tim, our winter helper is our employee has been diligently doing projects down on the boat, and we're getting ready to start some painting projects and some other stuff. So we are hosting this from our house. Oh, and Vivian. Hello, Vivian. Oh,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Oh, and Megan, Neil. Oh my gosh, so good to see everyone. So cool. Thank you guys for coming.
We're happy.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. It's great.
Oh,
to
and
see
Ben.
both
Oh
of
my
you.
gosh, I haven't seen you in a long time. Good to see you. Thank you.
There we go.
Yeah.
We used to
Seven.
do these trips where we would go, it would be like a long weekend trip or something to go stay with people and try to do a talk. And it was always super hectic. And it was fun, but it was also, it wasn't necessarily, it didn't work for seeing people everywhere. And so I actually am really excited that we can do this kind of thing now and everybody's good with doing a Zoom
Yeah.
meeting.
There's Sarah.
So
anybody
I have
have-
a question. I'd be
Yeah.
Sure.
interested to know of the people here. I haven't done it yet, but how many people have taken trips before with you guys? Oh, wow. Okay, great.
Wow.
Doing this
We're at
12
about
days.
70% or so of our guests have been on a trip with us before.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow,
Oh, it's amazing. Wow, look at all the people.
that's high praise.
I'm
We've-
actually signed up for the 12-day and very excited about it.
Yeah, we're
Yes,
excited to
good.
have you,
Carol.
Carol.
Yeah, we're excited to see you back.
We've been lurking and watching the progress on the David B through Off Center Harbor.
Oh, thank you. That's good to know. That was
Yeah.
that was a really, really fun thing. We were at the Victoria Boat Show and these people came up, I think it was the first year or second year that they had just started up, and somebody had told them that we were an interesting story and came and interviewed us. And it'd be kind of fun to have them back again because the boat has changed so much since they did that first video of us.
When
Yeah.
we did that video, he did a lot of video with me wearing a little clipped on lavalier mic, and then went back through and had me talk about the stuff while he wasn't looking at me to try to shoot, both me talking and me pointing to stuff on the boat and whatnot. And it was on a Sunday morning at the Victoria Boat Show. It was pretty early and it was really nice and quiet outside. It was really sunny and warm. And he went through doing it. And every time we got to about the same part of me describing something, a motorcycle would drive along the wharf really loudly. And so then we would stop and wait till it's the sound disappeared into the distance. And then he would start up again and ask me the same question. And I actually, when I watch that, every once in a while, I can kind of hear the annoyance in my voice because I've told him the same thing like 7 times. It's a good video.
It's great.
It's great.
It is a really good video.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah.
So I have a follow-up question, Jeff and Christine, because the light is different up there in Alaska. I lived there for a while. For this trip in May, is it going to be light in the morning? And then what time is generally sunset that time of year?
I think off the top of my head, I'm gonna say it's definitely light by like 4:30 or 5, and I think the sun goes down around 10 or so, and then there's
Wow.
light in the sky until 11 maybe, and then there's a little bit of darkness, and then I think it starts getting light again around 3:34, something like that.
Even that early in the late in the spring, early in the summer, it already is quite light in that section in Southeast. The days are already really long at that point.
I assume the cabins are dark for those who need dark to sleep, right?
Yes.
Yes.
They're dark and they all have some sort of airflow in them.
And then
And-
little reading lights. They have an overhead light to light up the room, and then little reading lights right over your pillow in the bunk. So if one person wanted to be in there and you wanted the rest of it dark,
Yeah.
you could do that as well.
And then we in 2020 we did put some air filters in, what's the word?
HEPA filters.
HEPA filters in, and they run on 3 different levels. So they can be absolutely super silent, or they can be like kind of a background noise sort of thing.
A little bit of white noise if
Yeah.
people want that.
Cool.
Yeah, we did have some people this year who had, for some white noise, they had a little trickle of water sound. And so we were up, we have a night watch, and our night watch, when we were switching off, she's like, I just got up and I heard this sound, and she thought it was running water. And so we looked all over the boat, and we're like trying to, there's got to be, it's coming in from somewhere. And we finally went down into the cabins, and we're like listening at each of the different doors. And finally we heard it, and like we were quietly opening up floorboards, looking for water coming in and everything. And we finally ended up knocking on somebody's door and asking if they had like a recording of water, and they did. And then we had a big laugh about it. And so if you're going,
They were both trying to sneak around in the middle of the
That-
night, trying to figure
pouring
out what this was. Where is this water noise coming from? And
yeah.
no pumps were running, but yeah, it was very funny.
Yeah.
At least they didn't have fire crackling.
No,
Yeah.
they didn't have fire
Yeah.
crackling.
That would be, yes,
Yeah.
that'd be a little bit worse.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Lori.
Hello, Lori.
Hi there. I have 2 Pack Creek questions.
Okay.
Are you number one? Well, number one, is the old granny still around?
She just passed on, so.
She has
yeah.
passed on.
Yes. She
How
has.
how long ago was that?
That was, you
2
were
years
there.
ago.
I can't remember which year it was. It was, I think it was the second
2 years.
season. Yeah, 2 years ago. I'll say 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
I want to say it was 2020 because she was there in 2019 when I got to go, but I think she wasn't there the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, 2020. Okay.
she
And are
looked
you-
very, very tired.
Yes.
Yeah.
The last time we saw her, she would go a ways and she would graze a little bit, and then she would just lay down. But what was beautiful was all the really big mean bears totally stayed away from her. No matter
All she
how
did was lift her head.
weak, yeah, she would lift her head and they would move away.
Yeah.
She was
So for the uninitiated, we're talking human or bear?
bears. So there was
Oh, there, yeah, right.
there was a bear
There's
that
an
they
old
had,
granny there.
yeah, there was a bear they had named Granny, a brown bear, a grizzly bear. And it had been there, they thought, for 20 some years. And it had kind of it had a limp because it had a broken leg or a disfigured leg that it had gotten at some point in a fight. And her nose was like pulled off to the side from another fight. And she was a really tough old bear. They aren't really sure if a lot of the bears there are descendants of her or not, but yeah, everybody was, she was called Granny or Patches because she was starting to look, her fur was very patchy at the end there.
For 2020. So did I understand you to say you're not going with a guide, that you two are now licensed or whatever?
Yes. So we had, back for people who don't know, we had been using one of the guides from Pack Creek Bear Tours, which is a fly-in thing. So we were using his permit to be able to go there, and he has a new job and he's doing something different now. And so before that, we were able to get permits for Pack Creek for ourselves. So our permits are in May and then again at the end of August. And so we've got some dates that we can go to Pack Creek then, and we've been through all the training with it. So we get to go ashore.
The interesting thing with that was that the very first time we got to use our permits, they had been issued to us, but they were conditional on us at least going through a sort of simple orientation. And we were scheduled to be there. But we had already scheduled to have the other guide come. And then the weather was really bad in terms of the cloud cover and whatnot. So they couldn't fly a float plane out there to bring this guide out to us. And so there was some quick negotiating over the satellite phone to basically train us on what we needed to know, which they already knew us. We'd been coming there enough. And so they basically said, we just need to make sure we tell you these things before you do this. But it was very, for a little bit there, it was kind of touch and go whether or not we were going to be able to, and we were anchored ready to go ashore while all that was going on.
Oh, goodness. Wow.
Always fun.
But yeah, now
stories.
we do have permits to guide ourselves there.
So, okay, that's cool.
I think that was one of my favorite things on the trip, was seeing the bears and being there and sitting there so close to them. It was so wonderful. The whole trip was wonderful, and I talk about it to anybody who will listen, but the bears were just unbelievable.
Yeah, that was a fun day. It was nice and sunny on that day too. And they just walked right by us and just kind of looked at us and played a little bit. That was really fun.
The bears in that area are habituated to humans, and they know that the humans are only going to go in these certain spots that basically we've been instructed to go. And because of that, the bears are very comfortable around people and will get within 30 to 40 feet at times. I mean, they're always paying attention. But it's really amazing to be that close to them and have them be basically ignoring us, doing their own thing and just ignoring what we're doing there. And we get to watch them pretty much in their natural habitat.
I think I felt like they thought we were lumps on a log, and they just went by us and thought, oh, another bunch of lumps.
I often think that too. I think we don't really register as anything to them. They just kind of like, oh, okay, they're there. Although I do think sometimes the females during the spring will march behind where the people are if they're wanting a little bit of space from, like, say, a suitor that they're kind of tired of. And so they'll kind of come behind us, and then the males will kind of like be like, oh, I don't want to go near those things there. And so then they get a little bit of breathing space, the females do.
So what you're saying is we're human shields.
Yes.
which I feel okay doing for a grizzly bear. It's really fascinating to me that these big, huge males, like 1,500 pounds, are pretty much, they're very skittish, and they're pretty much scared of the humans being there. I mean, they'll come close if they're really, if they really want to, but it's interesting that they're the ones that seem to be the most skittish.
Yeah, I think the females are in control at Pat Creek.
Yeah. It's a really wonderful experience.
Yeah. There are other really cool things too. I think the glaciers are really fun to go see. And one of the things that I like about that early springtime is it seems that they are often a little bit more active with all that spring runoff and the snow melting, and that kind of causes the glaciers to maybe calve a little bit more. So we get some good calving going. And if you're not familiar with that, when we go up to the Tidewater Glacier, we can watch the front of the glacier sort of peel off, and it falls off, big chunks of ice fall off, and it's exciting and beautiful and all that. So that's one of the more exciting things that we do. And what's nice about this trip is that's one of the last days, so we kind of work in a crescendo up to the glaciers, the bears, and then the glaciers and the croissants.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think you're taking us out in the skiff, Christine, and we were close to the icebergs, and the one cat flipped over that we weren't beside that one, but close enough.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was really fun.
Yeah, we were looking at one iceberg, and just kind of beyond that one, another one tipped over. And I think, didn't we just say something about how you just never know when they're going to tip over? And then one demonstrated for us just exactly how you just never know until it does.
Yes, and it was fun.
That was a really fun skiff ride.
Yes.
And we saw a bear on the beach on that one, didn't we?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and there were a lot of birds too. That was in No Name Cove. That was a lot of fun.
It was very fun. Well, the whole trip was very fun.
I love that trip. Yeah.
It just has little things that stick in your mind when you go on, and it's just delightful. Just a happy time.
It was, yes, it was. It was really fun. Yeah. And I think I am seeing Meg and Neil there. You guys were on the trip before that, and that was another wonderful trip. Yeah.
I was just thinking we've been lucky enough to be on several trips, and the phrase that keeps coming up for people who have only been on one is that this is a really once in a lifetime opportunity. You don't see the scenery and the wildlife that you see on this trip anywhere else.
But that doesn't mean you only have to do it once.
Yeah, that's what I tell people about that. You don't have to make it a once in a lifetime trip.
Right, but for the spectacular scenery and wildlife, people thought they would never see anything like this.
It's kind of, Christine and I are kind of split on this, because I'm certainly more into the scenery and Christine's more into the wildlife. I've spent a lot of time in my boat career driving around in wildlife, watching boats, looking for whales, looking for all kinds of stuff like that. And so I've done a lot of both sides, but I certainly find the scenery to be really the most sort of the amazing part of it, is being in that environment, all the different aspects of it, up in front of the glaciers where it's really dramatic, in the forest where it's really quiet, you know, it's all these different kinds of things that I really like in the scenery. And the wildlife is amazing too. And that's just, it's certainly, Christine and I are more split, and she's certainly
I love
the wildlife.
Yeah, yeah. But I do like, one thing I think I've done with a number of you has been, when it's been raining really hard and we all suit up in all of our rain gear, we go ashore and we're on the beach and we head into a forest. Suddenly, once you get off the beach and into the forest, and all that rain just gets misted down on you instead of pelted down on you, and sometimes you're in the deepest part of the forest and you hardly get wet, and just being in like that comfortable feeling in the woods where everything's just, it just has a really, I guess, wild but homey sort of feeling.
I must say that on our trip, we only had 1 day of rain. We were kind of spoiled. So if everybody thinks it rains every day, our group decided, no, it doesn't, because it just rained on the second to the last day, and that was it.
That's right. Yes. I think May is often historically has been a drier month.
Yeah, it's certainly nicer
Yeah.
than historically.
But I think Val and Hugo, you guys are on, and you were on in July, but in Glacier Bay. And I think the weather was 50-50, was it? We had good weather.
Exceptional weather.
That's right. Yes.
Because it started out just leaving from the harbors, it was the worst days there, but once we hit the areas where you hit the fabulous glacier areas and just moving into the central aspect of the trip, it just opened up. And I have to say, Christine and Jeffrey, you did recommend all these woolly, wonderful things, but when we were there, we were able to wear shorts and t-shirts.
That's
it
right.
was that wonderful, and there was 0 bugs. So that was kind of late July, early August. So it was fabulous.
Yeah, I always feel like it rains a lot. But then
No, it didn't rain for us. No.
And then I look through everybody's pictures, and it's sunny in their pictures, and so I don't know if I just have a bad impression of it, or
Stuck there longer.
Yeah. But I do feel like there's usually a few sunny days for sure on almost every trip.
Yeah.
Our
Last
experience
year I
was
went, I
it
think
rained.
It only rained once,
Only once. Nice. Nice.
and it was sunny. We had porpoises in the sunshine one day. It was kind of cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Our
Well,
experience has
here in
been it rained
Connecticut,
a
it
lot
rained.
at night.
Here in Connecticut, it rained for the last 2 days and we didn't see any porpoises. Just saying.
Yeah.
I think my favorite memory is Christine, you and I kayaking in Gambier Bay.
Yes.
And there was a bear on the shore and we're paddling towards it so you can take a picture. I'm like going, don't get too close, don't get too close.
Yeah, it was up in the Devil's Club. It was fun. That was fun. I remember that. And then I think we paddled all the way around Good Island and just looked at what was just underneath the boats. That was a lot of fun.
The kayaks are a really good way to see bears, because if so long as you're in water about 9 or 10 feet deep, you don't have to worry about them coming out towards you. And if they did try to swim at you, you're able to paddle much faster than they are. So, and there's nothing that they perceive as a threat coming from the water. They look up when they hear your paddles splash because they think it's a salmon, but there's nothing where they think it's a threat. And so it's really nice because it's quiet.
Yeah, it is nice.
Yeah.
And getting into the kayaks, we did get new kayaks in 2019, I think it is. They're a little bit shorter. They've got they're not quite sit on tops, but they got a nice combing around them. They're much wider, and they're
Easier to get
lightweight
in
and
and out
easier
of.
to get in and out of. Much more stable. And then still, for those of you who've been on the boat, we still put the skiff down next to the boat, and then you can just step into the kayak from there. And Jeffrey's always there to assist. So really simple for getting into the kayaks. And I think this year we used them so much more than we have in the past. And it's been a lot of fun to have them have these newer kayaks.
Mhm.
Well, it's really nice to see all of you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Thanks for,
yeah, and boy, thank you all for showing up tonight. And
Yeah, thank you.
This is our first orchestrated Zoom thing. And it's just, it's such a treat to get to see you all. Thank you.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you very much. It
Thank you
gives
so much.
those of us who haven't been on board a really good feeling for it. So thank you.
Oh,
Good.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very
And we are
nice.
going to have our one 5-day Misty Fjords presentation next week on Wednesday. If you want to participate in that, just let me know. Otherwise, if you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, and I think Carol had one more thing to say. Did you?
No, I was just
Okay.
gonna say, I'm really looking forward to the 12-day.
Oh, I'm looking
And
forward
for
to
the
having you
person
on.
that thought about it being claustrophobic, it's not, and I am claustrophobic, so it was awesome.
Cozy.
Yeah, cozy.
and you really don't spend much time in your cabin when you're not sleeping anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing
Thanks,
this.
guys.
Yeah, and thank
Thank
you,
you.
Vivian. So good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Yep.
We'll
Yeah.
be in May.
Yes,
Yes.
we'll definitely see you in May.
So much.
Yeah.
We look
Okay.
forward to
Thank
being
you,
in
Bye,
touch.
Sarah.
Bye-bye. Hi, Carol. All
Bye.
right, everybody have, if I don't see you, happy
Thank you so
holidays.
much.
Yeah, you too.
Yep,
Happy
you too.
holidays.
Happy
Yeah,
holidays.
Thanks
yes.
so much.
All right. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.